Okay, in today's video, I'm going to go over the difference between women's recreational boxing and women's competitive boxing. For those of you that are not familiar with who I am, my name is Lida Mae Button. I'm a motivational speaker and boxing coach with a background in Bachelor of Sciences in Nursing, 45 amateur boxing matches, winning the 2013 light welterweight Golden Glove Championship of Canada, 1-on-1 as a professional boxer, and I've been coaching for over 20 years part-time. I began full-time coaching in 2015, and in 2017, I was voted Fab Female Health and Wellness Entrepreneur of the Year in Greater Toronto Area. As a motivational speaker and coach, I help women and people with Parkinson's increase their energy while decreasing their emotional and physical pain so that they can have the trust and confidence in their bodies that they deserve. So, like I said, recreational women's boxing, okay? So for recreational sports, your focus of boxing is more getting the workout in, right? To release those happy feel-good chemicals that you can't get in just any one pill, like norepinephrine, serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, which is really important for Parkinson's, and a couple other chemicals I can't think off the top of my head. And then, so because you're just getting your work in, and it's about getting it done as quickly as possible. It doesn't mean that you don't want to learn about the sweet science. That's what boxing called the sweet science. But you're not as focused on technique. Okay, it's about getting that workout out getting in and out. Yet, technical wise, it's really important still recreationally to focus on technique as much as you can, because technique at first, when you're first learning a new skill, trumps speed, and it also really helps to prevent injury further on down the road. I cannot mention to you over my 20 plus years of being in the gym and being surrounded by the sport, when people come into the gym and they're swinging and they're not using their bodies effectively, what can happen to your rotator cuffs and that, your shoulders are more likely for shoulder injury. And if you're not focusing on engaging your core and that with different strength and conditioning exercises, more likely to injure your lower back and that. So it's very important to focus on technique first and foremost. Then recreationally, you're not worried about getting hit, right? Because the number one goal in boxing is to hit and not get hit. And the number one rule when you're boxing is to protect yourself at all times. And that applies to the competitive aspect. So when you're doing things recreationally, these are not things that you're visualizing in as much as you do when you're training competitively. And that's okay. But it's still, visualizing yourself as the champion or the greatest of all time is really, really important for your mindset and focus and to reach your goals. Now let's transition this over to women's competitive boxing, right? So in boxing, the number one goal is to hit and not get hit, okay? Which means you want to hit your opponent and you want to make sure that your opponent is not able to hit you, okay? On the amateur scorecards, the more that they see the points landed by your opponent, it's not so much power, more that they see the points landed, the more that it's going to score. And in the amateur circuit, or the amateur competitive ring, boxing ring, when you're starting out, it's first 3 2-minute rounds, when you're a novice, which means 10 boxing matches under. And then when you're elite, turn into more an advanced, seasoned athlete, 10 fights and over, it's 4 2-minute rounds for women's, okay? And then the number one focus and number one rule is to protect yourself at all times. So protecting yourself with your hands, protecting yourself with your defensive movements, moving your feet is what you're going to be focusing on, because the more you miss, the more you can make them pay, as one of the sayings that you might hear as you're entering into the boxing world. Okay. So again, when you're training in that, you're thinking about protecting yourself at all times, keeping your hands up, your footwork. So you'll be doing more drills and using more boxing tools that are in line with learning how to hit and not get hit. And I've got a couple of examples here to give you a brief little example. How to work more defensive movements so you can capitalize on your offensive movements. And as well, I have a link below. Click the link there for the defensive video and the importance of defense. Okay, so the tools that I have here that are really easy, and this is my home basement coaching space, right, is a duck and weave rope, and then I have a headhunter bag, okay? Because both force you to move your feet and move your head. It's very important to work on your footwork first, because that's your foundation of everything for boxing. So with the duck and weave, right, you can put this anywhere. It doesn't need to be anchored like heavily permanently to something on like a heavy bag, okay? You move your feet, you're practicing on your ducking and weaving. And again, you're gonna click on that defensive video to show you just the basics of how to do that. And then the headhunter bag, it forces you to move your head, move from side to side, moving around, okay? So those are just two basic tools. And one of my other favorite tools is the double end bag, because it teaches you speed, reaction, and endurance with your punches. And if you want to check out that video, you can check out that double end bag, how to use the double end bag video here. Now, as well with competition, your ability to have your anaerobic and aerobic capacity increases, because you're going to be your adrenaline, your ability to have more nerve and react in time and space based on what that other person is doing, as well as you trying to execute the plan going into that competitive boxing ring, is going to fatigue you a lot faster in the first few competitions. So when you're training, you want to train where there's a lot less rest, right? You're trying to push yourself to that max as best as you can, while also listening to your body and breathing deeply to help your recovery. But there's going to be a lot less rest versus when you're doing things recreationally. You might take more rest in between, like you might take a full minute round in between. But when you're training competitively, the only kind of rest as you build up your tolerance and your ability to increase your ability for speed, reaction, endurance as you're training, is you're going to start decreasing your rest time. So you might start at first when you start out in the gym, like a minute rest in between, you're getting your body, your lungs, your muscles adapt. But as after a couple of weeks, you decrease to like 40 seconds rest, then 30 seconds rest. And then as you get more and more elite, you're just doing active rest, like running or doing some sort of form of abs in between, and then going back into your training tools. Because, and other competitive boxers will tell you, amateur and pro, there is nothing worse than stepping into that boxing competitive ring when somebody's trying to hit you and you do not have your horsepower underneath you because you didn't put the leg work into your road running and into those extra rounds and decrease rest in the gym. Okay, so for those of you that are watching this and are really curious about how to get into boxing, I have a 6-day free women's beginner boxing challenge that's happening here starting March 31st, 2025, going until April 6th. And the link below is there for you to sign up for that. It's free, complete beginner. So it's designed for anyone who's never stepped into a gym before, especially women. I'll go over the complete basics on that with you, while fun and keeping you accountable. Okay? All right. So make sure, if you haven't already, to smash and subscribe to that YouTube channel. All right. Remember, movement is medicine, health is your wealth, and boxing saves lives. Coach Lita out.